What's up, everybody? I'm Skull,
Hey, I'm Zombie Cat.
and this is The Horror Den. And today we're going to be covering a review of 1 Hour Photo directed by Mark Romanek, starring Robin Williams. And Zombie Cat here is going to tell you a little bit about the movie.
This is a movie I've been a massive fan of for years. It is one of the most underrated gems that Robin Williams has ever been in. He deserves an Oscar for this movie. It is a shame so many people don't know about this movie. And I've had to patiently wait for Skull to watch this movie for a few weeks, and it's been agony. So, what did you think of it?
So, like you just said, this was my first time actually sitting down and watching this movie. I'd never heard of this movie until you told me about it. If you would have told me that this movie came out in 2002, I wouldn't have believed you. But overall, it was a really good experience. I noticed pretty much from the get-go, I don't know if it's just me not knowing what I'm getting myself into, or if it's just the actual ambiance of the movie itself, but I found that I was on edge for about the first 30 minutes of the movie, because it comes right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Robin Williams is just a great actor, and period.
Rest in peace, by the way.
Rest in peace. I mean, literally the first thing I wrote down when we were watching this was, it has all the Robin Williams charm, but with a creepy edge.
Mm-hmm.
It's the character right from the get-go just made me uncomfortable. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but it sounded like Robin Williams, which threw me off.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, he's in so many other films where he's bright-eyed and happy, and it's a different side that you would not expect.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Do you remember at any point growing up photo booths, like taking your photos to the store like Rite Aid, Walgreens, Walmart to have photos made?
See, I remember that time period. I mean, we were obviously very young, but I remember as it was kind of dying out. I mean, I still remember, you know, the moms at the family functions or the birthday parties with their little wind-up cameras, and they would go to Walmart and they'd come back with more. I mean, you still go to Walmart to get photos developed if you really want to.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a necessity from, like, my memory.
What's funny is this movie takes place right on the verge of when that stopped being a thing, so they literally made this movie last second, so it was kind of like, we gotta get this thing made, essentially. It was like, if you noticed in the movie, the mother is talking about she's gonna switch to a digital camera, and he's like, oh, don't do that, I'm gonna lose my job. So I like that they took a little joke at like that job was already kind of becoming slightly obsolete. But I also remember a good few times going into the store. This was like when we were super young. I remember going into like Rite Aid, Walgreens and such, and just faintly remember getting pictures developed like that, have to come back the next day and have it done.
So, like, something that the movie itself kind of inadvertently, like, foreshadowed and talked about a little bit, especially at the beginning. There's a whole monologue right there at the beginning that Robin delivers beautifully.
It is.
Talking about how photos capture life. And I can't help but notice that at first, I'm not really sure how much this holds up towards the middle and end of the movie, but at first it kind of seems like the family that he's obsessed with through many years of this job, their life is very colorful, very picturesque, very over the top of what we consider normal. However, his life is very sterile. There's a lot of neutral colors, a lot of whites, a lot of blues, a lot of grays, a lot of browns. And it's almost like he's living vicariously through this family. And, you know, now that I say that, I actually do think that it holds up considering what we learn at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the whole plot of this movie kind of revolves around this whole thing of he has a perception of what their life is. But beneath all the colors and beneath all the pictures, it's not a good life.
Yes.
There's a lot of cloak and dagger.
I completely agree. I don't know if you noticed this, but this movie, the color scheme, reminds me of a certain movie that I'm sure you can guess right off the dot.
I actually can't, so go ahead.
The Shining. Something that's really cool about this director, Mark Romanek. He was going to film a prequel to The Shining, but then Dr. Sleep happened, so that never happened.
Honestly, I'd still like to see that.
I would too. They could do something with that.
I don't think that they would screw up the canon if they did that. But anyway.
But I think you can see a lot of that inspiration with like the motions of sanity in this movie. You're basically just seeing a man, like you said, just basically living his life through these family photos, and he's a part of this family in his head, and
very creepy, by the way.
Yeah, it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So the film stars Robin Williams, and it's basically him working as a photo clerk in essentially a Walmart. That's basically what it is. And he's been developing a certain family's photos for, since they said their son was 2?
Like 10 years or something.
Yeah,
like
10 years, 10 or 11 years. And he basically has become a creep to this family, I guess it's fair to say. It's almost a monster in a way. Like, you get to see his house, and he just has a collage of photos of this entire family, like probably hundreds of photos, and you learn later that he's making duplicates of these photos, which later gets him in trouble at his job and eventually gets him fired, which will be brought up at a later topic. There's a really amazing scene in this movie that I've always been fascinated by. It kind of just shows you the innocence of children, I guess you can say. There's a lot of meaning behind it. Like, you could see it as just innocence, or say like a metaphor for religion, I guess you can say. But how kids can see things in such an innocent light. And the son is talking to his mom before it's bedtime, and this kid, he feels bad for Cy working as the photo guy. He's telling his mom that he believes that Cy is very lonely, very depressed, and it's really kind of sad because, I mean, it's just kind of that natural thing when you're a kid. You kind of just pick up on things like that. There's a moment the mom's like, well, you don't know that. Maybe he has a happy life. Maybe he has a wife and a mom and a dad who love him just like you. And it basically cuts to them giving a prayer towards Cy, like sending him good vibes, and it cuts to a scene that just makes your spine chill, of just Robin Williams standing in his apartment, just like almost numb, would you say? It's like...
Yeah, he stands unnaturally still. And it's supposed to be happening at the same time that these good vibes are coming his way, and he moves as soon as they stop. So it's this very unnerving thing of like, you know, if this was real life, if somebody told us that this happened, that's like almost like a sign from something bigger. So it's kind of a foreshadowing of like how connected he is in his mind to this family in this weird way.
Like I said, it can be interpreted so many ways, but I've always been so fascinated by that scene. And then basically the film evolves into learning how deranged this man is, and it's like he knows there's something wrong with him, but he can't do anything about it necessarily. Like, if you notice, there's a few times in the movie he has to pause before he responds to people. Like, when he's at the diner, he's flipping through these family photos, and the lady's like, oh, is this your family? And he's like, yes, this is my family. And he's like, I'm the uncle, and this is my nephew. He just turned 9. I got him a camera for his birthday. It's such a chilling scene.
But see, I don't really agree with that. I think that he might be aware to some degree, but I feel like it's all a choice. Does that make sense? Like that same scene you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He does hesitate, but it's almost like, in a way, I guess he wants to say no. But then that poses a whole bunch of other questions, like why do you have these people's pictures and all this other stuff? But he makes up a lie. Mm-hmm. And then later on in the movie, he even goes to like this flea market and he digs through his like old photographs and he buys this snapshot about that big of just some random lady, and then later claims to the mom when they encounter each other in a mall that this is his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a part of me that feels like the character Cy knew exactly what he was doing. Knew exactly why he said the things, why he made up the lies.
The reason I say that is just because there's a few times it's almost like he has to think what he has to say is normal, if that makes sense.
Oh,
like,
I totally agree.
It's like this isn't a normal thing, but he has to like take a moment to be like, Yes, but you notice whenever it's moments of rage, like there's a moment later on where his boss at work is starting to catch on to him. Say there was something slightly wrong with the camera machine, it was off by what, like 0.3, like on blue or something
It's
like
cyan.
that. Yeah, cyan. He is having like a tantrum, and you notice he doesn't have that same stutter. He's like demanding. It's like a rage build up inside of him. So that part I think is like his true feelings getting to express themselves of like the violent outcome that comes later.
So that actually is a really good segue. Before we started this movie, you asked me to look and make a decision for myself of where I thought his breaking point was. See, sorry, I knew he went crazy. Or he was crazy. I wrote down a few instances. Now, there was the whole instance of the printer. Like, the argument. That could have been the catalyst that started it all, because immediately after that we see his first hallucination, like full-fledged hallucination that we see.
Are you referring to the dream?
Hallucination, dream, daydream, when he's sitting in his car and he's imagining being inside the house.
Oh gosh,
That's immediately
we
after.
have to dig into that.
We will. And it's immediately right after that scene. But then later on in the movie, there's the boss firing him. That's another catalyst that kind of sends him spiraling down because he grabs the knife from that display, the whole nine. But I honestly think the final straw, the thing that broke the camel's back in this scenario, was finding out about the mistress.
Exactly. I was hoping you were going to say that. That is exactly what I've always assumed too, because he pictured them as the perfect family. He notices everything about them. Like he mentioned at the beginning of the movie, you take pictures of happy moments in your life. So all he has seen of this family is the happy moments in their life. And we were talking about the scene, he's outside of this family's house and you're looking at it, and then all of a sudden he's inside. He's basically roaming this house, but it turns out it's all in his head. But what I was going to tell you when we were watching it, but I didn't, I was like, let's save it for the review. I was going to say I typically hate dream sequences, fake outs, that kind of stuff. But I think what made it so creepy is that he had the house memorized to a T, how everything is laid out. So he knew exactly where he was walking. He knew where the son's room was. He knew the dog's name. Like, he was kicked up, but it all turned out to be in his head. So that scene, it gives me the chills that he knows that much about the house.
Something I liked about it, though, is that, yeah, it was a fake out. But at the same time, you, the viewer, had no fucking clue. And, like, that's even more evident by the fact that, like, Robin's character, Sai, is sitting on the couch, drinking a beer, watching the game with the dog. And
also, not to cut you off, he really wants to be the uncle of this family.
Uncle Sai.
He doesn't want to get rid of the husband or anything. He just wants to be a part of this family, like, just with them, like, essentially.
Which, I will say that me going in at the very first, I really thought that he was in love with the mom. But that trope was kind of done away with pretty early on. But, you know, he puts on somebody's clothes, I think it was his dad's clothes, and he's sitting there and he's drinking the beer, watching the game with the dog. And then you see the door unlock. And the door opens and the family comes in, and Sai starts freaking out because he has nowhere to go. He looks at the family, and there's just this moment of, oh no, he got caught. And then they just say, oh, Uncle Sai, I thought you were going out today or whatever. And then he snaps out of it. So it's just for that brief moment, there's that tension where you think that this house of cards that he's built, stalking this family, is about to just crumble down around him. And then it cuts away. So if you're going to do a fake out, I would much rather it be that way where I genuinely don't see it coming.
And not even that. Like I said, there's even like depth to it, how I was saying, how he's memorized the house and stuff like that. That's very scary. Did you also catch at the beginning of the movie, the mom, she has that book in her pocketbook,
Yes,
and when
and
he's
he-
at the mall. That's so good.
Yeah,
Like,
he sees over it, and it actually focuses on it on screen, and then he goes and picks up the same book, and then he starts reading it, and then the two characters have a discussion about it when they
and what's
randomly
creepy
run
too,
into
it
each
was
other.
when she was about to walk off and continue shopping. That's when he brought it out. He was like, "Oh, I'll see
Yeah.
you later." And then
Yeah.
there's the book, and it's spooky. It's so spooky. And what makes this movie so creepy to me is how I was saying it's almost like a monster movie in a way. Like Psy is a monster. It's like you don't know anyone. Me and our editor had this discussion the other night, and we were basically saying how creepy realistic this could be. I know my local gas station owner, like for example, he's not, but it's just, or is he?
Who's to say?
But it's basically like, just say like, I know him, like every time I go in there, he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing good," but he's a cool guy. But it's almost like something as simple as that is the same thing happening with Psy. It's chilling. It's like it could be literally anyone that you may just slightly know, but to them, you are everything.
Which, thinking about a stranger or an acquaintance being their everything is very unnerving if you really sit down and think about it.
It is. It's so realistic. It's once again just such an incredible performance by Robin Williams.
Yeah.
This is such an underrated movie. If you've never watched it, please watch it. Give it some love.
And not to tell you more than you need to know, especially at the ending. I have written down in my notes that it says compulsive liar or no life of his own. I mean, obviously what you see throughout the movie is that he doesn't really have a life of his own. He doesn't have a mom and a dad there. He's not married. He doesn't have kids. He's all alone. But I think that the twist at the end where it reveals more about Psy and why he is the way he is, I think that fully answers that question. So there is no mystery when it comes to how this movie ends.
It opens up
Yeah.
with Psy in the interrogation room, and he's asking to see these photos, and you're kind of just questioning what photos did he take, but it's very scary. A scene that really gets under my skin too, the boss that fired him from this job he's obsessed with, he is holding a grudge now against this boss, and you see him pull up to a house, and you're assuming it's the family that he's been following the whole movie, and you see him like zoom in, he's taking multiple, getting closer and closer and closer, later to reveal by his partner at the we'll call it Walmart. That's pretty much what it is. It's a Walmart.
Yeah.
His partner Yoshi, he brings these photos to his boss, and he's like, "I really think you need to see these." And he starts flipping through them, and they are all pictures of his daughter, just to like get under his skin and be like, "This dude's looking at my daughter in my yard." It is so chilling. God, it's scary.
Now, they do fake you out again at the end. This is where me and him are going to have a true discussion. Something I have a problem with. He didn't kill the dad.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. Well,
I mean, I understand why he didn't, but this whole movie, I was just sitting there and I kind of saw their interaction, and then we saw from the family's point of view. I felt like it was a natural elevation to that point.
yeah.
Now, he's scarred them beyond belief.
Oh God, yeah.
They will never be the same.
They're gonna need some therapy.
And, call me whatever you want to call me, but out of all the horror movies, we've seen, or thrillers, I mean, usually, there's just that part of us that's like, give us a good death, But there's not one.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, though. Not every movie needs it. So it's like,
Yeah.
I do understand what you're saying. Like, you wanted to see this creepy, which seemed almost innocent man just like snap to this point. So essentially what happens, he goes to the hotel where the dad is having an affair with his mistress, and the wife, they're pretty much going through a divorce. It seems like they're about to, at least. The wife knows the dad is cheating and so on. So he finds out through pictures. He has these pictures so memorized that he'd recognize somebody who came into his store, and he figures out this is the lady, and then he flips through, whose pictures was it?
It was
her pictures.
Yeah, she brought him in to get
He dug through her pictures and found that they were cheating, so that is what we were mentioning earlier, which really drove him over the edge into insanity. So yeah, that's when he takes this dark turn, and it's almost in a way sad though. You know what I mean? It's like, it's creepy. We've been talking the whole time, like, it's not a monster movie, but I qualify Psy as a monster. But at the same time, it's like depressing. You know what I mean? There's like a sad hollowness whenever you just see the blank expression on
You
Robin
kind of feel
Williams.
bad for him a little bit.
It's like, it's almost like Joker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that same feeling. It's like, what you're doing is terrible, but we see what you're going through and how bad that is. So it's like, it's sad, and it's like Psy almost, like, he has this mental illness, and it's sad, but it doesn't excuse what he's doing in the slightest. But
you know, something that I just realized was, you know, without giving too much away, what he does to the mistress and the dad, it kind of mirrors, in a weird way, what caused him to be the way he is. You know, without getting into too much detail about what that is.
yeah, I don't know how much of that we can go into on YouTube being our first video. So we're taking it easy. If we seem nervous and jittery, it's our first video. So.
We are nervous. We are jittery.
So we'll get better over time. This is just our first video. So the movie leads off. Of course, he gets caught. We mentioned he's essentially in the interrogation room at the beginning of the movie, so you know he gets caught, and he finally gets to see these photos he took, and he's asking the detective, like, are you a family man? Like, do you have kids? And it's really a chilling scene. He's kind of like breaking down, and he's almost telling you what happened to him as a kid. It's a really good scene. I just can't express how much I love this movie. I've watched it so many times. It's so good.
Also, I just want to throw some humor out there. You know, we were sitting down and we started this movie. You know, he's in the police station. He gets his mugshot taken, and the first mugshot, I look at Robin Williams and I go, oh my God, it's Walter White.
He's also kind of got an old school Slim Shady haircut.
Also, this really, like, screwed with me. And when it clicked, it was the clothes and the glasses and the hair. He looks like the guy from The Lovely Bones. Have you ever seen that movie?
Maybe.
Okay, well, anyway.
You'll have to show me a picture after, or he can edit in a picture afterwards.
Right. But the main antagonist of that movie is Stanley Tucci. And he does an amazing job being a serial killer. But he wears and looks exactly like Psy, but with a mustache.
Oh.
Like, no kidding. After this, I'll show you a picture of him. But it's, like, unnerving. And seeing that from my point of view, like, it makes you uncomfortable. Because it's like, I mean, obviously you learn more about how screwed up Psy really is. But it's just one of those little things that, I mean, The Lovely Bones didn't come out until way after.
One more thing I want to mention before we give our final ratings. The cinematography in this movie is S tier. It is so good. There's so many good shots. Like the one take of him walking down the aisles after he's leaving, and he goes back to get the knife, which is something that comes into play later, which we've kind of briefly spoiled. So, well,
I feel like the one thing that is spoilable about this movie, really, we didn't say exactly what it was. So I think that, you know, it's still worth the watch.
That's true.
Definitely.
Even if you've had this movie spoiled for you and you just haven't watched it, go watch it. I don't know if it's streaming on anything.
I don't think
right
so.
Now,
but I mean, we streamed it off of a you buy it and stream it service that I'm not sure we can name, but we'll just say that
it wasn't illegal.
No.
We bought it. We did buy it.
Yeah. Also, I really feel like we can't wrap up this video without saying, like, how much Robin Williams' disappearance from the world has, like, impacted. You know.
I have no idea. Oh, I have a funny story to tell.
Okay, go for it.
I'll finish this up. My stepmom, she's kind of crazy when it comes to horror movies. When she sees a scary horror movie, she's like, that was awful. Like, she just instantly cuts to, like, it's the worst movie ever because it scared her. And she's watched this movie before, and she hates Robin Williams because of this movie. She's like, oh no, not Robin Williams. He was in that movie. He was terrible. I was like, that means he was doing a good job.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the point. But what we were saying before, just absolutely, God, tragic loss. I honestly think this is his best performance, in my opinion. Like, of course, we all know him as the sweetheart, like, goofy guy. But in this movie, just for it to be so drastically different from what he's used to is, like, incredible. Just how spooky and chilling just a shot of his face can be at times. It'll just make your spine tingle.
It's amazing seeing what we consider a comedic actor just taking that whole expectation and switching it on its head. We always love to see it, but the loss of Robin Williams, I think that every movie fan, no matter if it's horror or beyond, definitely feels it. I felt like we had to acknowledge his genius without ending the video first. But without further ado, I really do think that we should go ahead and go to our personal ratings.
You go first because you're the... Well, I'll go first because I'll go first. I give this movie a solid 8. Solid 8. Like, it does have some, like, little here and there issues, but it's nothing, like, drastic. Like, it's hard for me to give movies 9s and 10s. That's, like, absolutely perfect for me. But so this movie falls at just, like, a solid 8 once again.
So you give it 8 zombie cats.
Yeah, I give it 8 zombie cats.
Okay. Now, I'm the newbie here in terms of this particular movie, so I tossed around for a long time what my rating was going to be. And before I say it, I'm ready to explain why. So my rating is a solid 7. Straight on the dot, 7.
That's not that bad.
No, I debated giving it an 8 for a long time.
It deserves an 8. Robin Williams did so good.
Now, if it was going based off of performance, I give Robin Williams' performance an 8 or a 9. Just in terms of my opinion, which that's all it is, of the movie, I give it a solid 7. Because, I mean, obviously, this rating could change the more I watch it. But just based off of my first initial reaction, it was a 7. It was well above average. I would definitely purchase it for myself if I still had a DVD collection. And I would definitely just buy it for my own personal consumption. And I'm definitely planning on watching it again. So
it is a movie that is very rewatchable. Like I said, I've watched it multiple times, and every time there's like just certain things you pick up on that you didn't notice before and you appreciate more. But I think an 8 is fair. I don't think a 7's too bad either, because it's almost in a way anticlimactic, but that's not a bad thing, because it's like it's more of a realistic take on this scenario of this monster going from side the camera guy to being we'll leave that to you to watch.
So that's 7 skulls and 8 zombie cats, and that averages out to a total of 15 for our score. Now this is our first video, and we do plan to keep doing this, so please just like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get access to our other videos. We have some other projects that we will announce when we get there.
Also, we have an Instagram. It's at the Horror Den channel. And also, please leave us any constructive criticism in the comments below. Like we said, we are very rusty. We are very new to this. We're still learning. We'll get better over time. This will all get better over time.
Also, in the comments, please feel free to list any suggestions of what to cover next.
Absolutely.
Next week we are planning to release a video where we will be reading a creepypasta.
Abandoned by Disney.
So just keep an eye out for that, and we'll release that sometime next week. It was good to see you all.
We'll see you in the next one.
You stay spooky out there.